1. The shattered transatlantic consensus. The confrontation between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has not only highlighted deep divisions within the West but has also exposed the fragility of U.S. European relations. Historically, the United States has been the cornerstone of Western leadership, particularly in military and economic support for its allies. However, Trump's public rebuke of Zelenskyy, suggesting he is gambling with World War III, signals a stark departure from the unwavering support Ukraine had under previous U.S. administrations. The European Union, long reliant on Washington's strategic direction, now faces an existential question: can it assume the mantle of leadership in the so-called free world? 2. Europe's bid for strategic autonomy. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas' assertion that the free world needs a new leader reflects the growing sentiment among European leaders that the continent must step up as a geopolitical force, independent of U.S. whims. This is not a new debate. French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly called for European strategic autonomy, arguing that Europe cannot be solely dependent on American leadership, particularly under leaders who question NATO's relevance. The EU's response to Trump's confrontation with Zelenskyy, pledging to increase support for Ukraine, underscores its desire to chart its own course, but the real test will be whether Europe can translate rhetoric into meaningful military and diplomatic strength. 3. Trump's challenge to the Western order. Trump's isolationist stance has long been a disruptive force in transatlantic relations. His skepticism of NATO, his transactional approach to alliances, and his focus on America First policies have emboldened leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orban, who align with his brand of nationalism. The ideological rift is now on full display. While most European leaders reaffirm their commitment to Ukraine, Trump's allies in Europe see his calls for a swift peace deal as a pragmatic solution. This growing divide signals a broader power shift. If Trump returns to the White House, Europe will have to navigate an unpredictable and potentially adversarial U.S. administration. 4. The strategic reality. Can Europe lead? Despite its economic strength and political influence, Europe's ability to lead remains uncertain. The EU's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been robust in terms of sanctions and aid, but it still lacks the military power projection capabilities of the US. NATO remains a transatlantic alliance, with American firepower at its core. If Trump withdraws U.S. support, European defense budgets, military coordination, and strategic decision-making will have to be significantly strengthened, something that historically has been difficult given the EU's internal divisions. Calls for a European army remain more theoretical than practical, and the continent's reliance on U.S. security guarantees remains a hard reality. 5. The future of global leadership. The current crisis is about more than Ukraine. It is about the future of Western leadership in an era of geopolitical competition. With China rising, Russia pressing its strategic goals, and the global South increasingly skeptical of Western dominance, Europe faces a critical juncture. If Trump's return to power leads to a retreat of U.S. leadership in global affairs, Europe's response will define whether the West can maintain its influence or cede ground to rival powers. Kallas' words signal a European willingness to lead, but the path forward remains uncertain. The coming years will reveal whether Europe can truly emerge as the new steward of the free world, or whether the lack of U.S. leadership will leave a vacuum that other global players will rush to fill. 6. The limits of European unity. While European leaders have expressed strong support for Ukraine, their unity remains fragile. Countries like Germany, France, and Poland have differing visions of Europe's role in global security, and internal divisions over issues like energy dependence on Russia, defense spending, and migration policies make collective action difficult. The European Union is an economic powerhouse, but politically and militarily, it remains fractured. Without a unified defense strategy, any attempt to replace U.S. leadership will be incomplete and ineffective. 7. The economic factor. Can Europe sustain itself? Beyond military considerations, Europe must also contend with the economic consequences of distancing itself from the U.S. The dollar remains the world's reserve currency, and much of Europe's financial stability is tied to US trade and investment. If transatlantic ties weaken under Trump, the EU will need to build stronger financial institutions, diversify its energy sources, and deepen trade ties with other global powers. Without these measures, any claim to leadership will be undermined by economic vulnerabilities. 8. Russia and China, the new global contenders. As the West struggles with internal divisions, adversaries like Russia and China are exploiting these fractures. Russia continues to wage its war in Ukraine with no signs of retreat, while China is expanding its influence through economic partnerships like the Belt and Road Initiative. If Europe fails to assert itself as a strong geopolitical force, it risks being sidelined in the emerging global order, where authoritarian powers are increasingly shaping the rules. Europe's next moves will determine whether it remains a central player or a reactive force in world affairs. If you like this video, do subscribe to our channel, and drop your feedback. Thanks.